Welcome to Theology Thursday,
That part shouldn't be hard. It's just the
a
title.
podcast where we discuss topics of theology.
This is great.
And
This is great.
there's a long pause somewhere. I don't know where it is.
An ecumenical space.
An ecumenical space for students to discuss matters of life,
faith,
and theology.
Oh, there you go. You nailed it.
Aren't faith and theology? I mean, they're pretty closely related.
Sure.
Okay. Anyway,
Sure. We're thinking of faith, and I think it's just we could have said matters of Christian living and theology, but that's 2 words, and it's even longer. And
it's true.
we're kind of thinking about faith isn't like applied,
and
theology isn't,
I see.
the studious side of things.
Very good.
So welcome.
Hey.
Yeah, I'm your host, Connor Grubbs.
Oh, hi,
This
Connor.
is our guest, Blake Farrell.
I'm here.
Yeah.
So
And Ryan and Johnny are not.
in spirit.
So the whole point of us having guests on was so that this chair wouldn't be empty because Ryan's out of town for like a month.
Yeah, there it's empty.
And it's
So,
empty because
guess
Johnny's running very late. But
he heard I was coming, I guess.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
Maybe he'll join us later.
Don't
So
blame him if he doesn't.
I don't either. So you're my pastor.
Oh man.
Yeah. And my boss, I guess. So I guess.
Yeah. Sorry. I'm sorry.
Yeah. No, so Blake is the pastor. If you don't know, at Restoration Church in Clearwater,
It's over there,
yeah,
right?
it's the camera. It's
Hi, Peloton
Re-
people,
re-
Patreon people.
well, anybody.
Don't they get the video?
Well, they get it
Oh,
too.
YouTube video too.
Yeah,
Oh, good.
it's available
Yeah,
to
what's up,
everybody.
YouTube?
So Blake, you're the pastor at Restoration Church, Clearwater, Florida,
It's true.
and I've been leading worship there. Coming up on a year now, I guess, in December.
Yeah.
That's a few months away.
Time flies.
Yeah, feels like it's been like 8 years.
Time flies during a pandemic.
Goodness.
I mean, isn't that what they say?
Maybe, I don't know. So yeah, we can maybe talk a little bit more about that in a little bit. And yeah, so you've been doing that for how long? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah. So I'm Blake Farrell. I pastor a church. I run a coffee shop. I work as an accountant. I also have 4 children. And in my spare time,
Apparently, you come on really crappy podcasts.
I come to Theology on Thursday. And so, yeah, I've been doing that for a while. My wife and I moved down here about 10 years ago now. Started Restoration Church in downtown Clearwater. During the course of that, needed space to meet in downtown. And as a result, did the natural thing that anyone would do when they need space, start a coffee shop.
Boom.
And so we started a coffee shop so we could have space, and now the coffee shop's really busy and doing a great job, and we have space.
Yeah.
And so that's good. And that was quirky enough that it apparently convinced Connor to come be a part of it. So, that's good.
Yeah, it's been cool.
Yeah.
It's been cool. And I've shared a little bit at times about it. I think one of the things that's pretty unique about it is kind of the family integrated aspect of
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
If you want to speak to that a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. So, contrary to sort of normal operation of church, in our church, we just have the kids hang out with us as much as possible. And so what that means is we don't have any child programming other than kids 6 and under during the sermon can go back and have like a short Bible study time and prayer and mostly playtime in sort of a nursery setting. But otherwise, kids older than 6 just stay in service with us the whole time. They participate in worship, as do the younger kids. But they also listen to the sermon, kind of hang out with each other, are relatively calm and draw or whatever, like you might remember doing in a pew growing up if you were in some church that didn't have mega programming. And then they actually facilitate their own prayer time, which has been really cool to see, because we used to feel like we need the responsibility of an adult going over there and like helping them walk through the time of prayer and how we pray for a church and how we pray for a country and that kind of thing. But lately, they're like stiff arming the parents from coming and helping facilitate that time because they've got it. They understand. They're like,
That's
okay,
awesome.
I want to pray for my friends and I want to pray for that church and that country, and I get it. So
Yeah.
they're kind of running it for the most part on their own, which is really pretty cool.
Yeah.
One of the really key things that we really wanted to see. The other thing that we'd love to see is that like our kids are just belting out these songs.
Oh yeah.
I mean, Connor brings a great song and they just want to sing along with it and do a great job, and to hear their voices, amongst all the adults is beautiful.
Yeah,
So,
it really is. No, that was something that stuck out to me the first time I visited because I wasn't leading that Sunday.
yeah.
And the kids were right behind me, and I was like, you can hear them more so than anybody else in the room, and it was just really cool.
Yep.
Yeah,
Absolutely. Absolutely. So they just learn way quicker than you ever think, and so it's just really cool to see them, in that. And I just really believe in challenging them at an earlier age than our culture challenges them with spiritual things. They're being challenged with all sorts of other stuff already, so we might as well be pressing into them on faith earlier as well, because man, you need the tools to battle at an early age, and so we want them to be as involved in discussions as possible. Challenge with that obviously is like if you had programming for kids, then you've got an easier space for them to fit in, and we're trying to figure out ourselves as we go along. What does it mean to be family integrated, and how do we compensate for the fact that we don't have a youth group dodgeball night every week or whatever, because there is some things lost in that. So we're learning as we go, and I think we're figuring some things out.
We're learning together.
We're learning together. Yes, we're doing a lot of things together.
So no, but one of the things I think is really cool about not just the family, but just the model as a whole that's really unique is that it's much more relationship driven than it is program driven. To
speak to that, like it's more it's not generational focus. So we like intergenerational learning. So there's no, even in our small groups, they're set up such that we actually desire, seniors and young adults and young marrieds and marrieds with kids and kids to be in the same space. Recognizing that we don't naturally hang out with each other. Like I'm not gonna like call up a senior necessarily and be like, hey, let's go get some food or whatever. Like I'm probably not gonna do that, but I might call my friend John and be like, hey, let's go meet up. But he's in my life stage. I'm gonna interact with him more normally, but I need to hear like from people in different life stages of their faith, like how they're reading a passage and how they're hearing this message and hear their perspective, because frankly I'm not there. So I want to hear how Jesus's challenges to them are playing out in their lives, because I'm not in their space. And so I want to understand how the gospel applies not just to my case but to everybody. And the beautiful thing is it applies in a very similar manner, just with different perspectives. So well, that's cool.
And not to belabor the point, because that's not why we're here today. I just thought it'd be cool to share more about it, because it is different. And I think like no matter what tradition of the faith you're from and what model of church you implement, like the main thing that I hope you can take away from it is be intentional about that cross-generational interaction.
Absolutely.
Find a way to do that. That might look way different in your context than it does in ours, but you need to pursue that because it's really important.
Yeah, absolutely.
So with that being said, you offered a critique
I did
about the podcast that subpoints should come at the end instead of the beginning.
I did.
Okay. And I want the audience to gauge in on this. Let me know.
Do you agree with me?
In the comments. Do you think that subpoints should come at the beginning or at the end? It's sort of an icebreaker. Like, let's just hang out and talk about something stupid. Sometimes it's not stupid. Sometimes it's kind of intense. But, whatever.
Yeah.
But why do you think it should be at the end?
Yeah, so, okay, I'll make my case, right?
Okay.
So my case is, hey, Theology Thursday. I see that on my podcast list. I see a topic, and I'm like, oh, I want to learn about hell. Yeah, we're talking about hell this week? Sweet. I'm going to pull out that podcast and listen to what Connor and his buddies think about hell.
Yeah.
And so if I pull up the podcast, I'm ready to, hear about how hell matters so much.
And then you're hearing about Trump and aliens.
Okay, when do we start talking about hell? Because I wanted to hear about that.
Yeah.
And I'm like 15 minutes in, and I'm working through a subpoint, which is, granted, very entertaining and very worth the time. But I'm like,
I see your point.
When is hell coming?
Yeah.
So.
Well, another solution to that I've always wanted to do but just never taken the time to do is just put in the show notes timestamps so you could skip.
That's true. That's true.
It might be that simple.
Maybe it is that simple.
And for the YouTube audience, this is a non-issue because
they just get what they get.
It's separated into multiple videos throughout the week. So,
they do. Oh, there you go.
Yeah,
they can do what they want there.
There's a subpoint video, and then yeah. But the audio is all together. So
yes.
But we're gonna do the subpoint now.
I'm good with it.
Okay,
I'm good with it.
And this is great because we actually have, if you weren't aware, we have a monthly podcast that's exclusive to our tier 2 and 3 Patreons.
Ooh.
Okay, called Theology Thursday Reading Hour, where we discuss books that we've been reading. So we do that once a month.
Nice.
So this fits right in with some discussions we have. We used to talk about books a lot in subpoints, and we realized, we should make like videos about this. And then we realized, I don't know like how much of a market there is on YouTube for that, but if people are giving to us, that's like they're probably interested in what we're reading. So it seemed like a kind of a niche thing for that. So today you have a book that you want to share about.
I do. My subpoint is about a book. So if that makes it premium content, I don't know. But
it's
anyway.
not.
Okay, good.
Because you're talking about the book.
Masses.
I'm just
exactly. And
no, share.
Very wordless.
I'm
so many of you know a pastor named Kerry Newhoff. Maybe you know him. He's a pastor in Toronto. I think it's Connexus Church was the church he pastored. Became wildly successful church model and grew fabulous, whatever. And then he pivoted at some point to leadership and thought, being a thought leader, I guess, and writing books and all this. And he, in his sort of life, he came to a point in his late 30s, which I am. And so it's uniquely important to me in some ways. He came to a point in his life where he reached burnout.
Yeah.
They're having tremendous success, doing amazing things, growing like crazy, achieving everything he really wanted to achieve.
Yeah.
Except that he had spent so many years trying to achieve what he needed to achieve that he'd burned out.
Right.
And just like, had a rough go of it for a long period of time, emotionally, spiritually, etc. So he shares about that, and that birthed this book for him, being that there is a need for managing our time well so that we can meet the expectations that we put on ourselves and take care of what matters, to us. And so he came up with this book called At Your Best. And so I've been reading through that and or listening to an Audible or whatever. And it's been really good, just very encouraging. And the basic framework, or one of the big thoughts that he has is that, we think of a work day in terms of like 8, maybe 10 hours if we're, one of these, you or I, we're probably 10, 12, whatever it is. We're working on work and school and church, all these things. And how do we prioritize our time well? He actually says that we only have somewhere, like the average person, between 3 and 5 hours of time that is like our peak performance time. Like I can get into a project, I can get it done and have some tremendous thought and advance something. Maybe it's a book you're writing, or maybe it's a material you're developing or talk you're working on or whatever it is. And that you only have like 3 to 5 hours of time a day that can truly be like beneficial to accomplishing one of those big goals that you might have. And so, if you think you've got 10 hours to work in a day, the truth is like your capacity is really more like 3. And if you're an amazing person, then maybe 5. But that really kind of drills it down for you and drives home the need for, well, if I've only got 3 hours of my day at some point where I'm at my peak performance and actually going to advance a project that I think needs to be advanced, well, I need to structure my day such that I know that my 3 hours spent on that is at the right time.
Yeah.
So that's where you get to this conversation of, is my best time at night, is my best time in morning, is my best time in afternoon, whatever it is. And where are the 3 hours of my day that I can put my most important projects that are most important to me that I want to advance, we're going to put those so that I maximize them. And everything else falls into a yellow or a red category of, okay, maybe I have less energy, but I can accomplish a meeting because, the person that I have become is just kind of there, right? So, like, this is a yellow time for me, so to speak, I guess is what I'm understanding. I'm learning the thing. But, I know who I am, so I'm confident in coming to talk to you. I actually didn't prepare anything. Sorry.
Yeah, that's the Theology Thursday way.
Right. I am who I am, right? And so I don't have to put a whole bunch of brain power into this time period of the day because I'm just hanging out with Connor and talking about something that matters to me. So
Yeah.
I don't have to like think very hard about that. I just have to be who God has made me to be at this point. So so if you're scheduling something like that, it should fall into your yellow zone. And if you're in your red zone, you should do something like you don't want to do, like run. You know, exercise is a good thing to put in your red zone because, first of all, you're not going to accomplish anything anyways during your red zone time of the day. So you might as well be doing something that's productive that doesn't require any thought and just run or exercise or, you know, plow through email or whatever it is that doesn't take a lot of thinking. So
Does he offer some sort of framework to figure out what those times are?
yeah, he does. I think it's atyourbest.com. He's actually got a website with some tools set up for it. And he talks through kind of the challenges, right, of how you should best use your red zones and your yellow zones and your green zones and where they typically fall for people and how you should like think about each category. So he does a really good job of like walking through it and dealing with people's potential objections. So if you've read anything about Carey, you know he's very thorough with all that he's doing. And so, you know, one of the things that he wraps up with is just that, you know, he's in his 50s now, has 2 older children, I think 2, maybe more. But he's got regrets, right? Because he spent a good chunk of his productive years just going as hard as possible, and it drove him to burnout at a time when he should have been the best for his kids, you know? And so he recognized his regret in life is that, yeah, like I wasted some years on my family because I didn't manage my time well. I was doing great things, but I just didn't manage my time well. And it ran me into the ground. And so like if I would have had a better framework for when I accomplish what is most important, I think I would have done a better job. And this is kind of the culmination of my thoughts on this is this. I was talking to my father-in-law about this a while back. They're coming in tonight, actually, and we were driving from wherever it was, Virginia to Louisville, I think, dropping off a trailer or whatever. Anyway, some side story. We were in the car, and we were reflecting on kind of just, it just so happens a lot of times that the point at which you are most professionally confident happens at the time when you're most socially needed. Just generally in life, like in the general framework of life. In your 30s, you know, when it's about the time that you're having kids and have your career kind of sorted out or whatever, understand, like it's the time when you've got probably built the most relationships have built up. You're the most, you know, motivated to, you know, accomplish things, and it all kind of just crunches into this one time frame of your life, right? Because like 20 years from now, for me, right, I'm going to be 50 or so, right? I'm going to be almost 50. No, well, 20 years from now, no, I'll be almost 60, right?
Yeah.
So like my life is going to be totally different, right? Like it's going to be a lot slower, you know? But right now, there are so many demands, and that's not just unique to me. That's like pretty a normal occurrence that in life you just like you've gotten into this stride of your career, and it turns out that happens to be when you might be raising a family and you might be most connected to other people. And so it just is a really needed space of how do I manage my time through this kind of a season? Because we're all going to face it. You know, how do I do it well? I don't want to be at 50 or 60 and look back with regrets about how I cared for and spent time with my children. So,
well, you'll certainly look back and regret that you wasted any time being on this podcast. So obviously your time management book did not help because you're here.
God. Hey, I just finished it, so I haven't quite applied it. Maybe 6 months, there's no chance I'm showing
Sorry,
up.
I just read a Carey Newhoff book. I can't come today.
I can't come today. Exactly.
It's not worth my time.
The Art of Saying No. Very important.
Yeah.
But I love Connor.
That's a
I'd do
different
anything
book.
for you, so I'm
well,
here.
Aw, that's sweet. Well, you are here. And the topic that we're going to
Johnny's
talk
not,
about...
though.
The topic that we're going to talk about today. You've never met Johnny in person, have
No.
you? Well, maybe at my wedding.
So. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I think I'm...
Reception.
At your wedding.
Thing. COVID's weird.
Oh, man. Yeah, didn't get invited to your wedding, but got invited to your wedding reception. So that's how much has changed in a year. I mean, nobody was invited to your wedding, but...
Yeah. I also...
Did we know you?
I don't even know you,
right?
Knew you when I got married.
Yeah, a lot can change in a year.
Wow. Yeah. Wow.
Johnny, save us. Where are you, man?
Johnny. Hey,